to another Checiegirl Creations DIY video. So today I will be creating on a page in my fabric journal. Not too long ago I had a video asking you guys what kind of art journaling videos you wanted to see, and the fabric journal and the challenge art journal were like the top ones. So I will link one of the challenge art journal videos in an iCard in the top right hand corner, so you can see like the most recent one. And yeah, so I started this journal quite a while ago. There's a lot of pages in this one. This is my most recent one, and I'll link to this. I created this using the last year's June's mixed media box, and it's all like kind of fabric themed. So I used the fabric journal for one of the videos, and yeah, so you can see there's lots of pages in this one and all sorts of different materials, and these two are pre-gessoed already, but this was just using gesso, not chalk primer, because I pre-gessoed this like ages ago before I started to make chalk primer. So anyway, I am not sure at all what I want to do on this page. I'm going to be creating on this page today. Yeah, so I'm just going to put this into fast forward mode. I will have a voiceover so you guys know what I'm doing, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to add some colors. I'm going to add some viridian, purple, blue, and some red. And I'm going in with my fingers. I wanted a really nice messy background. I wanted it to be very loose, so I thought using my fingers would be best. And I just wanted to put down some color really quickly, so I'm going in really messily and just slapping that in and just kind of blending it together as I go. And I'm making sure to like wipe my fingers between colors so I don't create any mud, especially between like the viridian and the red. That will create a bit of mud. Yes, so I'm also going to add some marks. I'm just like kind of stamping my fingertip over the paper in a few areas using the same colors, just to create a little bit more visual texture and just make that background look a bit more interesting. And my chalk primer was a bit dried out there because I wanted to use it to blend the colors, so I just went onto my white paint instead. And at this point it started to look a bit like a hot mess, but that's okay. It didn't last like that for too long, thankfully. And yeah, so I just felt like the background needed to be brightened up a little bit, so I added all that white. And I'm going to go over and you do the same on this little mini page. When I made this fabric journal, I was really into having these mini pages between my big ones. So I would tend to use a mini page to put like a quote or something. So I was just prepping it just in case I wanted to put a quote, but in the end I didn't want to. So I'll just work on that another time, and then I can just have my mini art journal page. So back to the main page, I felt as if I needed more color. I think I blended it in a little bit too much. So I'm going in with the same colors I used before and adding like the same marks in a few areas, in threes really, around the page kind of evenly, so it would look a little bit better and the colors would pop a little bit more. And I also added some white as well, just to make sure it looked nice and bright. So once that was dry, I figured I wanted to have like some hills or something, and then you can see the sky in the background. So I've just torn out some tissue paper to make those hills. And I wanted to put some like circles in the background. I wasn't too sure what for at that point. I just thought it would be interesting. So I've taken this piece of paper from one of my old subscription boxes. That was the packaging, and I'm just cutting some circles out in all sorts of different sizes, and I'll just place those around the page. And I pretty much used most of that paper, so I had some nice small circles as well. And I folded in half just so I would get 2 circles, so it'd be nice and quick. And I'm going to figure out where I want the circles first, because they would be behind the hills. And at first, I thought the circles would just be part of the background, but then they actually ended up being the focal image. So I'm going to stick this down using a palette knife and PVA glue, and I had to use a lot of glue. I think it's because it was like a kind of fabric base. I just needed to make sure that it stuck down very well, and it wasn't like working on like canvas or cotton. This is a synthetic fabric. I'm not too sure what kind, but I know it's synthetic. So because of that, it was kind of slippery. So I had to use a lot more glue than I normally would have to. So next time I think I create in the fabric journal on a slippery synthetic fabric, I will prime it a lot better because there was a little bit of gesso on the page, but not that much. So next time, especially if it's a colored page and I want that color, I'll just use quite a bit of clear chalk primer, just so there's a little bit more grip. So onto the heels, I am putting in first the initial shape with those like kind of rolled up pieces of tissue paper. I wanted the top of the heels to be a bit more defined than the rest, so I thought it'd be good to have a little bit more texture on the tops. And after I do that, I will go in with some more tissue paper to block in the rest. Just I'll make that flatter so it doesn't look too it doesn't take away from like the tops of the heel. And again, I had to use a lot more PVA glue than I am used to. And as well, the fabric wasn't completely flat. When I made this, I wasn't very neat at all. I just kind of slapped the pages together. So some of the pages are easier to work on than others. This page was not so easy to work on. One, the slippery surface, and two, just because it just seemed to wrinkle. I don't even think it was wrinkled when I first started, but it seemed to wrinkle like the more medium I put on it. So that's also something to keep in mind. And now I'm going to add quite a thick layer of clear chalk primer. I wanted to make sure that when I went over with my paints, it wasn't too slippery. And before I give that a very thorough dry, because of all that glue and stuff, it took forever to dry with the heat gun. I'm putting on a strip of gold paper just to define those hills a little bit more. Yes, so I would say next, if you're going to work on fabrics, the easier fabrics to work on is like canvas or cotton. And if you are going to work on a slippery surface, make sure to prime it first. You don't have to worry about all that later on. Oh, and denim is really good to work on as well. So at this point, I decided that the circles will become planets, and the background just, it seemed a bit too busy and sparse, if that makes any sense. So I'm going in with the same colors I used before and just kind of going around the planet and blending that in and blending all those colors together to make it more of a uniform background, and I liked how it looked a lot more after I went in. And I'm trying to use kind of put the paints next to slightly contrasting circles so that it would pop out a little bit more. Though I will be going over those circles with some paint as well, so I didn't have to worry about that too much. Yeah, so like the page that's next to the one I'm working on, that some kind of cotton, it might be synthetic, but it's very thick, and as well as easier to work on a thicker fabric than it is on a thinner fabric, and this fabric was quite thin. So I think that's probably why it wrinkled a little bit, because I did create on the page next to it a few days or so after, and it was a lot easier to work on just because it was a much thicker page and a lot more sturdier. And while I'm going in with this red, my paintbrush was kind of wet after washing it between the colors. So that kind of worked out to my advantage because I didn't want too much of a thick layer of red. I just wanted to kind of blend in and just add a little bit of warmth to the sky. So that worked out quite well. So I did water that down quite a bit, and you can see how watered down that is. And then that blended in quite nicely. And I made sure that the sky was nice and dry before I start to add some splashes. So I'm going in, and I'm going to go in with some white and silver, and I'm going to try my best to make all sorts of different sizes. So like the more water and the bigger the brush you use to put splashes on, the bigger they will be, and the less water and the smaller the brush, the smaller they'll be. So I was using the same brush, but I was changing how much water I put in the paints. and that changed the sizes of the splashes because I wanted all sorts of different sizes because of course, you know, stars aren't all the same size. So once that was all dried thoroughly, I'm going to go in and work on my planets. So the first one I used like some blue, white, and I think I'm going to go in with some yellow. Yes, some yellow. And it took me a while to kind of get the hang of the planets. I wasn't looking at any photos or anything. I was just kind of putting colors together that I thought would look nice. And you'll see as I go along, I'll get a little bit better at it. But a lot of dabbing and blending, I think I had to do. Like with the big blue one I started off with first, I wasn't a fan of it. So did have to go in and keep on adding. But then that yellow one I liked a lot more. And I just kind of dabbed the colors in and then just blended it all in with like the blue, the yellow afterwards. So you'll just see me doing that, and I'll just keep on going back and forth with the planets. And as I go along, I will sometimes add some silver just so it has a little bit of shine in it. And I'll keep on adding some white as well. Like with that blue one, I felt like I just had to go all over with white and then add some colors in afterwards. And that small orange one kind of looked like mud, but then I was able to fix it. It was a lot of touch and go with the planets, and it did take me quite a while actually to get it how I wanted it to look. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would quickly mention all my mixed media boxes are on sale. They are originally £18, but they've been marked down to 12, so you can check those out in the description below. And if you do follow my videos and you create something that you've seen in my videos or use any of the techniques I've shared with you, please do share your creations. You can tag me on Instagram or you can join my Facebook group and you can share what you've created in there because I would love to see your creations, and all those links will be down below in the description. So please do check that out and follow me on social media too. So you could see all like the behind the scenes of what I'm doing. And I'm making sure to do the planets first before I work on the hills, because of course the planets are in the background and I didn't want to have to go in and like touch up the hills afterwards. So I'm making sure to paint all my planets first and then I can go in and paint the hills. Okay, so now that I've finished the planets, I'm going in with some green paint to do the hills, and I went in with quite a light green, and then I'm just going to add like the details with a darker sap green, and the light green I think is called light yellow green. Yeah, I think it's called light yellow green. So yeah, I'm just blending that in and I'm just using just one brush. I wasn't going to add too much detail because I didn't want it to draw away from the planets. So I just wanted to make sure that like all the the depth and everything in it just looked right. So I'm also going to go in with some blue as well. I felt as if the dark green wasn't dark enough. And when I go in with that blue, I'm just going to blend that in. I think I use the phthalo blue or like ultramarine or something. I can't remember which blue I used. And I'm using just a smaller brush just so I can blend that in. So I'm starting darker at the top and then lightening at the bottom. And that is pretty much it for the hills really. I just really didn't want it to draw away too much from the planets because those was like the main focal image. And you can see like how much texture there is in there, especially from like the page and the tissue paper and everything. And I think I also went in with a little bit of white just to kind of blend things in a little bit. And some of that lighter green again. I felt as if I'd made the heels a bit too dark, so just brightening that up a little bit. And I'm not really using like kind of brush strokes. I'm more like dabbing it on just to kind of give it a bit of a grassy kind of texture. And I'm going to go in just with a little bit more blue. And I'm also going to go in with a little bit of white just to add some highlights. And then I believe that is it for the hills. Yep. So now for some a little bit more detailing. The planets looked fine, but they just weren't standing out enough for me. So I'm going to go in with some calligraphy ink, and I'm using calligraphy ink that like best kind of matches the color of the planets. And I'm going to blend it in with my fingers, as you can see there. Now I'm going to go in with a paintbrush, and any of the inks that's gone off the planet, I'm going to blend that into like the sky, and I'm also going to blend the edges of the ink so it looks a little bit more blended, and it just makes grounds the planet a little bit more and also makes it stand out some a bit as well. I'm just using some just water to blend that in. I didn't want to add too much ink because I didn't want to cover up all like the nice pretty colors of the planet. So sometimes I had to pick up some of that color as well. So if I found I had too much color, I would just dab my paintbrush on a paper towel after I kind of picked it up with some water. And I'm using blue calligraphy ink, the green one, and the red one. Yeah, those are the colors I used. I wish I'd had a pink, but sadly I didn't have a pink, so I just used my red. And when I wanted to make like purple, I would just combine the red and the blue and just blend that together. So you can see that's like how much that helps, because some of the planets stuck out easy, like that big yellow one and the big pinky orange one, but then some of them just kind of completely disappeared into the background. So adding that ink really helped, and it also just added some depth as well and made them look a lot nicer. And though the inks do dry permanent, find that sometimes maybe it's the kind of inks I'm using, because the Winsor and Newton ones definitely dry permanent, but I think one of the inks I use maybe don't dry permanent. So when you're changing between colors, make sure and wipe the nib off really well, because adding water may not, but like sometimes when I'm using different inks, it kind of reconstitutes the previous ink I used. So if I use a lot of black ink for when I'm adding my details. So when I'm going to in with colors, I don't want the black to muddy it up. So I do have to be careful to make sure that my nib is nice and clean. As well as my calligraphy pen as well, because when I dip it in, sometimes it rubs on the inside of the bottle, like the handle does, which is why it has that black mark. So don't do what I do and make sure your calligraphy pen is nice and clean. So you can see like on this planet, I did have to go in quite a few times and try to remove some of that color so it wouldn't overpower the rest of the planet. This planet as well, I had to remove a lot of the color. So this one, let me see, which one am I doing now? Yeah, so this one I wanted purple, since it was a purpley kind of planet. So I went in with the red ink on my calligraphy pen, and I just kind of dabbed my paintbrush in the blue calligraphy bottle, and then that created a kind of nice purpley color. I think I also did it on this one as well. Yeah, I made that one purplish as well. And then once I blend that in with the water, you won't be able to tell I mixed it. So I think that's all the planets done. Yep. So I just cleaned my nib off there, and I felt as if the hills just needed a little bit more definition. So I'm going in with some of that blue calligraphy ink and doing the same technique that I did on the planets. And I liked how the hills looked a lot better, and I really like that blue calligraphy ink. I find that just adds a really nice touch to everything. And I'm making sure that's nice and blended, because I don't really like to have hard edges. Yeah, sometimes hard edges could just make things look a bit harsh. So I like to have everything kind of blended so that it doesn't look too like separated or anything. Okay, so now for the fun part, adding the highlights and a bit more detail. So I'm going in with my Uniball Signal pen, and I'm just going in around the planets just to make sure they stand out nicely, and you can see once I do that, they do. And I'm also, when I'm going in, I'm kind of blending the edges as well because I didn't want too much hard edges. Yeah, and also kind of just adding some kind of scribbles and doodles in the planet and blending that with my finger just to add a bit more interest. I found some of the planets looked a bit plain, especially the bigger ones. So adding that white really did help it. And you can see how when I'm blending the edges, like the hard edge, it just looks a bit better than having a hard edge. And now I'm going to add some stars. I felt as if the sky looked a bit plain. So I'm just going in and adding some big stars, again with my Uniball Signal. And I'll also go in and add a little bits of smaller stars as well, just kind of dots here and there. And I'm also, I do count the stars just to make sure I have odd numbers. I like to have odd numbers on my page, though I'm not sure if I have an odd number of planets. Actually, I do have odd number of planets, so I did quite well there. Yeah, and then I just added some circles for the stars, and um, I'm just going to add some highlights on those hills as well. It doesn't make much sense, to be honest, because there's no sun in this, so really there shouldn't be that much highlights on the hill, but that's okay. I wanted it to be nice and bright. And now I'm going to go in with some black and just add a bit more detail, just in a few areas on the planets, not all over, like how I did with the white. I just wanted to add the black to ground the page, because black grounds and white creates a pop. And you don't always have to use black and white, you just have to use a light color and a darker color. I'm going in with a bit more white. I felt as if I added too much black, so I'm just going in and strengthening those white marks. And now I'm going to add some silver, using some silver calligraphy ink as well. Just around the planet. Sadly, you can't see it, and you don't really see it in the photos, which is a shame because it had a really nice shine to it. And when I did that, when I was dipping it in, again, like the handle did rub up on the inside of the bottle. And you will see when I start to add some silver with my fingers, because I had some left over on my finger, so I was just kind of adding it on the hills. It looks a bit grungy because the black and the silver mix. So that's why I was giving you that advice before, to make sure your calligraphy pen is nice and clean, because just in case you didn't like how that would look. And I'm just going to edge the page now with some black calligraphy ink with my finger, and that is pretty much it. So I shall talk to you at the end of the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Okay, so I'm all done, and I love how it turns out. You can see that I didn't really do anything else on this little like mini page. I could probably just do that later. Do something else. I quite like this page just by itself with no like carry on onto this little one. I shall give you a bit of a close-up. It's very shiny and silvery. I hope you can see it. Yeah, so I wasn't sure how it was gonna turn out, like what I wanted to do, but when I stuck down those circles, and I knew that I wanted to do like something with planets. It just felt a bit like kind of galaxy-like, and I love it, love it, love it, love it. All the texture, especially like when I rubbed some of the silver on the like the hills. Some of the black ink that's left over on the handle of the calligraphy pen kind of rubbed off as well, so it kind of gives it kind of like nice dark silvery look. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are a subscriber, I want to thank you very much for your support. It means a lot to me, and thanks for sticking around. Don't forget to click that bell as well so you can get notified whenever I upload a video. And yeah, so that is pretty much it. If you do like try out anything you've seen in any of my videos, please do share on my Facebook group. I would love to see what you create, and if you're sharing on Instagram, like please do tag me, because I just love to see everybody's different creations and like to see how different people use the same techniques and just make something completely unique to their style. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I hope you join me again for another arty video. Bye!